Hi everyone, this is the first of a series of videos on the Westlicht Performer Eurorack sequencer module. And there's a few reasons why I decided to record some videos on this module. My modular system has never been centered around a sequencer, and so I have never really needed a battleship sequencer, a multi-track sequencer, such as the Westlicht. And I'm also pretty picky about sequencers because I don't do a lot of grid-based sequencing. But a couple of weeks ago, a colleague of mine was selling this, so he built it, and he's like, "I'm going in a different direction, and I'm going to sell it for cheap." And so I'm like, "Okay, I'll sit down and play around with it for a little bit." And without the manual, just sitting here looking at it, I'm like, oh, this is going to be one of those, 16-step sequencers that's probably going to be pretty boring, and it's not going to do what I want. And, I sat down for, a couple of hours, and at the end of those 2 hours, I was creating some pretty crazy, chaotic sequences on my colleague's system with this. And one of the things that I discovered that is super cool that I haven't found in other sequencers I've come across is this internal routing matrix that you can access from page routing. So my tutorial series is not going to cover the basic functionalities of this module because there's another YouTube channel by Anthurium. I believe his name is Michael. He has a fantastic series on the Westlicht Performer already that covers a lot of the basic functionalities. So I've decided that for my series, I'm going to demonstrate some of the more experimental uses of the sequencer using just patch examples that I've already programmed and then kind of take you through that. So this internal routing system, which allows you to control, modulate all kinds of parameters on one track or multiple tracks using the output, using the values of another track within the sequencer. So without further ado, let's see what this particular project, this particular patch which is set up. So I've got track 1. It's set up to play a 16-note pattern. So this is what it sounds like. Right, so there's a 16-note pattern, and I get to the step sequencing page by pressing page steps, right? And then this is track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, which we'll go through. I'm only using 4 tracks. Right now, I've got track 1, 16 steps. It's just moving forward through the 16 steps. Nothing really too crazy. If I go to the gate settings, all the steps are on, right? And I can turn them on and off on the fly. I go to gate probability. I haven't set any per step probability. I've put in some slides, and one of the other cool things about the Westlicht is that, you can edit multiple steps at the same time by just like pressing on them. They're highlighted, and then you can just turn the knob, and then there you go, slide on, slide off for those steps. So I just put some slides in there. So basic 16-step sequence that's running at, let's see, at dotted 30-second notes right now. And the oscillator I'm using for this track is the Noise Engineering Cursus Iteratus, a wonderful digital oscillator that I like very much. And it's going through a mutable veils, and the envelope is from the mutable stages. Now, track 2 is basically a copy. I think I've copied and pasted the track 1 to track 2. Some of the values are a little bit different because I think the scale is a little bit different. But what I did was I basically copied, and to copy a track, again, you can press Shift Page on a lot of the pages in the Westlicht, and it'll take you to a submenu. So you can go copy, if you press this, go to the next track, and then paste. And so I've pasted the same sequence to track 2, but I've changed the mode. So this track is running in ping pong mode, which just means it's going back and forth. And I've also changed the speed of this track. It's going at eighth note triplets instead of on track 1, it's going at dot at 30 seconds. And track 2 is, where it's going is actually going through an attenuator and then controlling the decay amount, the decay slope of my envelope. So you can hear that the notes, as they're playing, the length of the note is lengthening and shortening. And I can, on the fly, just change the speed of this, right? I can match the rate of the change to the first track by pressing page divisor. I can make it change a little bit slower, Anyway, this is just to add a little bit of variation to the length of the notes. If I turn down the attenuator, all the length of the notes are the same. So that's all that's doing. Track 3 is what's known as a curve track, which is another super cool thing about the Westlicht, is that every track, each of the 8 tracks can be set to either a note track that looks like this, where you can, set the note or the semitone and then gate on and off, or you can set it as a modulation track. And so that's done in the layout page. So if you go press page, layout, track 3 is set as a curve track, right? So that was done beforehand. And if I go back to where it shows the sequence, go to page steps, this is what I've set up. And for each step, I can, so if I press step 9, that's highlighted, and I can go through all these different shapes on that step. Now, you can't really modulate the shape of the shape, but what you can control is the minimum and maximum value of each step. So even that introduces a lot of cool variations, and the whole lane itself can become a very, very complex modulation source. Track 3 is, there's nothing actually patched physically to track 3 because it's modulating something on track 4. So right now, if I play, I'm only playing track 1 right now, right? Right, again, that's 16-step sequence. Track 4, I've copied track 1. If I go between track 1 and track 4, you can see which track I'm actually viewing right now. They're actually identical. So I've just copied everything on track 1 to track 4. But on track 4, what I've changed is I haven't changed anything. Even the slides are the same, I think, between track 1 and track 4. But what I am doing to track 4 is that I'm using track 3 to modulate the clock divisor, so the speed at which track 4 is going to run is being modulated by track 3. And it looks like this. So if I go to the routing page, my target is the divisor of track 4, right? This is the tracks that's the target is being targeted to. So track 4, and the target is a clock divisor. You can set the minimum and maximum. So I set the fastest speed this track is going to run at, 16th note triplets, and the maximum or the slowest speed at quarter note triplets. And that's just, I don't even know what that really means, but I know roughly how fast that's going to go. So you can tweak that as well. And then I put the source of the modulation is the output of track 3, right? So internally, it's going to route this sequence to control this parameter. And you see that this parameter is being controlled because there's an arrow beside it. It means that, yeah, there's something's targeting this right now. So if I turn down, I'm going to turn down the first track, and I'm going to play the second track that's being controlled by track 4. The oscillator is the Industrial Electric Hertz Donut Mark 1, another amazing oscillator. And so let's see what this sounds like. So you're seeing track 3 curve and hearing how that curve is affecting the speed of track 4. Which I think is super cool. And now, when you layer that with the original, with track 1, which is just running at a steady speed, it gets pretty funky, in my opinion. And of course, while everything's playing, you can be modulating stuff while these things are playing. So let's say, I'm playing it's set up this way because musically it's very clear what's happening. But if we want to go kind of crazy, we can have these playing. So now I'm on track 1. I can, on the fly, just have this track play backwards. Or go random. Or have it play forward, but have it start on step 5. Or contain it. You can window little micro sequences with the first and last step. Another thing that is kind of essential in a sequencer when I look for it is to be able to set the first step to something other than step 1. So it's really important for me because I love being able to kind of scan through a longer sequence and be able to window shorter sequences out of it. I can turn gates on and off on the fly. I can add slides. So that's how it's set up originally. And then meanwhile, this track is just sort of doing its own thing, speeding up and slowing down. And if you start adding some delay, so that's a good start, I think, for me in terms of introducing some of the cool things in the Westlicht. Mainly, I'll be doing a few more of these internal routing patches, just to demonstrate how experimental and how chaotic the sequencer can be once you get into modulating first and last step, once you get into routing the clock divisor, and yeah, independently, every single one of the 8 tracks can be modulated in terms of the speed of playback. And not to mention there's song mode where you can actually do what Ableton Session does in terms of triggering scenes of patterns, right? So you can have scenes of patterns. You can add a whole scene that just plays pattern 1 on all 8 tracks. And then, on track 2, you can have the second scene play pattern 4 on, so on and so forth. You get the idea, right? You can just have scenes. So that's called a song in the Westlicht. And the cool thing, one last thing I'll say for this video is that you can be in your usual pattern mode and do its pattern thing and then switch to song mode while it's playing. So you can actually switch between just playing patterns and then scrolling through sets of patterns. There's also cool things, quickly, performance mode. You can mute stuff. So if I've got both of these running, just mute it. So that's really handy. And also there's this pretty amazing fill function in the sequencer that I'm still sort of learning. It goes with the little bit with the conditions, the per step conditions, and I'm still trying to figure that out. But when I do figure it out, I would be happy to do a video of that. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching.